Hello, hello, and welcome, Justin and Alex, to the RevUp Health Podcast. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start by just talking a little bit about BodyMetRx and how you guys came into this business.
Oh, okay. Well, that would take us back about 10 years ago. I was actually a client of BodyMetRx at our founding location in California.
Okay.
And so somebody who has struggled my whole life with, obesity and trying to get healthy, I found them to be kind of just something unique and different for me to find a way to customize my approach to achieving weight loss in a healthy way. And then in 2020, Justin, came into the picture and he found quite a bit of value in using BodyMetRx as well. And so we were both customers of them back in several years ago back in California. And when Justin relocated to the Midwest, he thought, well, we kind of want something like this out here. So he opened a business and a location out here so that we could not only utilize it ourselves, but bring that to the Kansas City area.
I love that. And tell us a little bit about the testing that you guys do.
So essentially, we offer this kind of customized approach to learning how your body works. So generally speaking, we know how metabolism works. We know how our body burns, fat and carbohydrates or glycogen, but everybody does have a little bit of a unique variable to it. And what these medical grade tests do is help us narrow it down as accurately as possible so you're not guessing. So there are a lot of, generic tests out there that can calculate your resting metabolic rate or your cardio zones. You used to see that on the treadmill where, your age and, what different heart rate would be your cardio zones. What our tests can do, excuse me, our dog wants in on it, Crispy.
Well, yeah.
What our tests can do is get you as zoned into what your specific needs are as possible. So we offer VO2 Max testing. We offer resting metabolic rate testing. We offer a 3D body scan, which offers 600 digital images. It basically measures your body surface area head to toe using 600 digital images. So it's very accurate as opposed to tape measure. And it's a lot quicker, to get head to toe measurements, virtual or digitally instead of manually. And then probably our most common test is our body composition test, which is similar to a DEXA and almost as accurate as a DEXA. It's one of the most accurate body composition programs on the market, only second only to DEXA by minimal amount.
Okay, excellent. And we will say that we've both gone through your testing and really love the information that we got from it. So
the body contouring pictures they're quite eye-opening. It's looking at that on a piece of paper or in a computer screen versus looking in a mirror is different. That's just totally different.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is like, you come to BodyMetRx for the data so that you can use that data as, just guidance for how to approach whatever it is that you're doing for health and fitness. And one thing I really like about our body composition test, it's a Sika scan. One thing I really like is how the data is laid out. It's colorful. It's, easy to read. It's just visually it's appealing for me. I kind of prefer it over say body comp, I think or BodPod. What's the other one?
BodPod InBody.
InBody, the InBody. So I compare it to that. And I think visually it's extremely appealing when it comes to the way the data is laid out.
I kind of like those body composition, the bioelectrical impedance like that. I like that better actually personally, even more so than DEXA. I think DEXA scans are really kind of more tuned to bone, the integrity of bone versus I really like the breakdown of how the body composition with the bioelectrical impedance does actually. So it gives a person a number that they can trend. And that's really what we tried to push it to the patient is that, this shows a snapshot right now, but what you're going to do and your activities and your lifestyle changes will change those numbers and you can follow that trend. And that's very motivating for people to see that.
Yeah, it is. And like you said earlier, it's going to pick up on the things that you can't see in the mirror yourself or that go beyond what the scale is telling you. And, as you mentioned with DEXA is an excellent tool for bone density. But at the point that someone is coming to us looking to see whether or not they've got a risk of bone loss or bone density loss, that's out of our scope. And so that would be an appropriate, thing to see their physician about and get a DEXA. But that's not, that's the one thing that we don't get is bone density, but everything else we're able to tell. Visceral fat, we can do hydration, obviously a body fat percentage and muscle mass, not just lean body mass, but muscle mass and where that muscle is distributed. So we can identify some deficiencies or imbalances between your left and right leg or left and right arm and so forth.
Yeah. With the body composition changes, do you see, I guess maybe what's your percentages of folks that maybe just have an information that want to gain that information versus people, maybe athletes that come in to want to kind of see where they're at and what they can do to tune up certain areas in their body? Do you think there's a percentage that you see there?
Yeah, we see a wide range of clients, though, just people just wanting to know the information, to athletes that are honing in exactly how to strengthen one side or, post an injury and rehabilitation, make sure that they're equal, runners, cyclists, and just the general public, folks who are on a weight loss journey and versus folks who are on a journey to gain muscle mass and longevity and have that foundation as they age in life.
Yeah, I really we focus a lot on the muscle component of that too for patients. So, because it's so important for muscle mass to maintain that, especially, you guys aren't old enough to worry about that yet. But when you start getting my age, you start to worry about muscle mass. And that's certainly something that's really important for folks when they get up to their older years. So.
One thing that you bring up though, Mark, my physician has been telling me for years that I need to worry about muscle mass in perimenopause. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that perimenopause can start up to 17 years before your last period. And the way she described it to me, because I've had a considerable amount of muscle, but now the challenge is keeping it up there and keeping it up there so that I'm going into menopause with my strongest defense being my muscle mass.
Yeah, it's 30 years old is when it starts to dwindle downhill, and it's so important to be able to do something, try to maintain that and build. You can build it at any age, but it's good to measure that. Justin, you might want to kind of expound on this a little bit, but what is, from an athletic standpoint, what things do you see or notice or trends do you follow with your body composition? Maybe some experience that you had for doing your body composition.
Yeah. So specifically on the body composition side, for the listeners, I'm an endurance athlete. So right now I enjoy doing triathlons, and my bigger ones are full Ironmans and half Ironmans. And so I just finished Ironman Florida about 3 months ago. And we scanned before we took off for Florida, and then we scanned once we got home post the race. And there was about a 20-pound shift
That's crazy.
between the pre and post, so a week. And a lot of that was inflammation and a lot of my fluid changing and getting into the interstitial fluid to work on rehabilitating my muscles and that. So it is very good to track, to change, to see the differences. Even locally, if you just go run a half marathon or a full marathon, just watching the difference, what your body does. If you're not fueling well enough during an event and you really get into the glycogen stores of your muscle and you're not replenishing that in the appropriate time frame, like pre, during, or post race immediately, and you do notice a shift in and lowering of the muscle on your body as it kind of uses that glycogen stores and hasn't replenished it. So it takes a while to kind of get back into replenish those muscles and rebuild them post a race if you're not fueling appropriately.
I imagine that also then helps you recover better than some people who don't have that data.
Yeah. Or if they're dealing with overtraining or they're dealing with chronic fatigue, that might be a clue towards it. I will, praise Mark in that he's one of our few endurance athletes who also maintains quite a great amount of muscle. And so if I may say that about your results with us, because that's actually a really good reason for endurance athletes to really keep track of their body composition. VO2 Max is usually what they come to see us for, but the body comp gives them some insights to, hey, you're running for 4 hours at a time, but your tank is really low. your body can only store so much glycogen if you only have so much muscle on your body. So it really helps them to see that and click when it comes to dialing in their nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
That's a really good reframe too, that I think a lot of people can really get from having a body composition, is that especially in perimenopause, for example, where women may be struggling with weight gain and they start really working at improving and their body composition is changing, but the weight is not changing. It's what makes up the weight that's actually changing. So when you can see that on the body composition, that's so beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. People get so discouraged about looking at the big number instead of what makes up the numbers. So
We've been
it's nice to
conditioned
see
to.
that.
Yeah. It's a hard condition. It's a conditioning that we have to reprogram, and it really helps to see the data.
Yes.
Yeah. But now you also measure resting metabolic rates also. How's that measured?
Yeah, it's a machine so you breathe in and out of a tube for about 10 to 15 minutes, enough to get the data from the machine. But it takes the fat and carbohydrate molecules off your exhaled breath and is able to calculate how many calories you need at rest. So the best way I describe it to the clients is if you sat at home and you did absolutely nothing and streamed or watched Netflix all day, you still need to eat at least your RMR. And then that's not including your day-to-day life, kids, work, exercise. So then that number does increase. So I think mine right now is about 1,900. So if I sat at home and did nothing, I still need to eat 1,800 or 1,900 of solid nutritional calories. And then on top of that, anything beyond, running or training or day-to-day life.
That kind of leads into another misconception that is right now, in that, people often underestimate their resting metabolic rate, and they're fueling way under what that rate is.
We see a lot of people struggling to lose weight, and then once they slowly are able to get back to their RMR, they start seeing positive results and that weight just coming off. And because you're not eating enough and your body's compensating for that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It thinks that you're being starved, so it's going to try to store it all up. So, but yeah, I don't know. When I did, one thing that's really it was really stood out in my mind when I tested that RMR is how still you have to hold. And it is so hard to hold so still to measure that expired, those metabolites. And I thought that was quite interesting how you had to just literally hold still for for 10 minutes, I think it is, or something, to measure that.
Yeah, it's physically the easiest test you'll do, but mentally that's most challenging.
Oh my gosh, exactly. So many of them, like the VO2 Max that you have to put forth so much effort. And this one was just the complete 180-degree opposite. So,
and this is your deal. This is the guy who just can't sit still. So it doesn't surprise me at all that was the part of the testing that was hardest for you.
Kind of have to get out of your head.
Yeah, and that's why we ask people to just mentally drop in, really just kind of surrender to the discomfort of it, and we turn on really calming music, nice scenery. We have a nice comfortable chair that people can I find the massage part to be a little stressful, so I don't turn on the massage, but around heated thing, we have a blanket. We ask you, if you're going to scroll on your phone, Justin always tells people, stay away from the funny cat videos so you don't laugh and then throw off the data. But I will say it is cumbersome at times, but it's one of my favorite tests because of the value of the data that comes out of it.
Right.
And, going back to the Sika body scan, it will calculate your basal metabolic rate or resting metabolic rate based off of, the generic formula that we're accustomed to. And then when we have people who also that's a very common pairing, is to come in for a body composition and resting metabolic rate test. We'll say, okay, keep that number in mind. Let's go actually see what your resting metabolic rate is. And we just had one of our associates in yesterday, and she reminded us, she's like, yeah, mine was 400 higher because she was breastfeeding. And that's something that formula doesn't take into account. So for her, about, I think it's 6 to 8 weeks after she stops breastfeeding, she'll come back in again and get a new measurement of how much she should be eating. But yeah, it just doesn't, that's how much more precise it can be to get a medical grade test.
Yeah, that's a great.
Do you find that most people that number is far off, or
It's estimated up to 10%.
Okay.
It's estimated up to 10%. I've seen 400 calories is a higher amount, but it's on par with what we've seen with other breastfeeding clients in their 4th trimester. And I would say it's usually within 100, but the general one is usually lower than their actual.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because, resting metabolic rate depends upon folks, their age, their gender, their height, and their weight. And, of course, when you have these other metabolic issues going on, it changes that too. So, but it's certainly good for people to know their baseline, where they're at. So,
and it doesn't account for muscle, which is going to eat up way more calories than fat.
Right. And that just goes back to what we said before. The total weight is not as important as what makes up that total weight on the scale.
Exactly. But speaking of, endurance and longevity markers, I think one of the probably the most understated, but yet the most important in my eyes is VO2 max.
Mm-hmm.
The VO2 max is something that that's something maybe you wouldn't explain to us what VO2 max is to the lay public.
So just talking about the test, we start folks off at a nice slow walking and we increase it. We call it a 1 rep max if you were doing a bench press, and this is you for the runner, but you get a lot of great data on it. We test your cardiovascular, your respiratory system, and it's a good new gold standard to show longevity of life and the overall of just how well all your systems are running together. So the test, you have a heart rate monitor on, you breathe in and out of a mask, and you slowly start walking, and we speed you up every minute and then go until your body is burning 100% carbohydrates. And that's really right when you're really exhausted. And that way we can understand how well that respiratory exchange rate is going to understand what that overall VO2 max number is. And the VO2 max number is just your how many milliliters of oxygen per kilogram you were able to breathe in and out per minute.
Yeah, it's a great cardiorespiratory measure, biomarker. And but one thing that we talk to a lot of patients about, whether younger or old, is your VO2 max is going to slowly and steadily decline unless you do something about it. And for individuals that we've got patients that in their 80, and for individuals that I tell people and I ask people, okay, what do you want to do? You're 30 or 40 or 50 right now. When you turn 80, what do you want to do? Because what you want to do will determine what your VO2 max needs to be for you to do those activities, whether it's going up, downstairs, going on a hike, getting up and down off the floor with your grandkids. But maintaining those VO2 max levels or numbers is very important. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for people to keep that up.
It is. And it's a lot more work the later you start. It's not impossible, but this is something that could be maintained over time. And, something that we've come to find, we were both paramedics in another life. And so we've worked with a lot of patients. And one of the things we're really good at is guesstimating somebody's age. But what I find is that the clients that come in that don't look their age, where they tell me they're 80 and I'm like, I would have never guessed. Or they're living, super independently. They don't have a history of hip fractures. They have, they don't have a long list of medications that they're on with comorbidities. They have 3 things that we notice. And one of them is a healthy VO2 max. I don't remember what's the recommended. Is it over 40? It's over 40. I think
it depends on your age.
Yeah, it depends on age.
Yeah.
So we'll say a healthy VO2 max for their age, low visceral fat. It's not body fat percentage. Body fat percentage, like there's some function and use to subcutaneous fat, but low visceral fat. So a smaller waist and high muscle mass. Those are the people that are aging gracefully, that have, are living independently, that aren't at high risk for falls, and, really have tapped into the fountain of youth.
Yeah. Less chronic disease and less onset of chronic disease. So it's certainly, I agree with you. It's totally true.
Justin, how did you use VO2 max when you were training for your Ironmans?
It's a great question. We've done it about every 6 months or so, and it does change for me depending on what strength or what training block I'm in. But I really use it to understand my heart rate zones, where my zone 2 is versus my zone 4 and zone 5. That zone 2 really builds that aerobic base. And
there's a lot of controversy on this too. Maybe you can give me your thoughts about it, but ways for people to, build their VO2 max. Now we're talking about individuals. Okay. It's dependent upon a lot of things, volume, and intensity. But obviously if a person has plenty of time to actively move in the zone 2 level, then they can build their aerobic bases. But whenever somebody's more limited on, they only have 150 minutes a week, which is the recommendations, bare minimum for activity and exercise. Well, how do I spend that? So we have a lot of individuals that maybe come into this in a sedentary situation, and it's like, okay, well, you got to start somewhere. So, start with your zone 2 and start moving up. And like you say, sprinkle in some HIIT and really work on this high intensity stuff to try to help you to build that VO2 max level.
Well, and I can speak to the person who hates cardio because we are exact opposites when it comes to the amount of we work out. I need to work out more, and he, works out at an Ironman level. That, tells you anything. So leading up to his races, he's doing 20 hours a week, which, could lead to a lot of overtraining if his nutrition isn't on point. But for me, I will say that one thing that the VO2 Max can help me do is realize it doesn't take much to get in those 2 hours of zone 2 training. Zone 2 training is way less intense than I thought it was in my head. Right. So when I was, attempting to increase my cardio, I thought I had to go just so hard in a spin class. And, the harder you went, the better, the more calories you lost, the better, or you burn, the better. And it would just burn me out. Like mentally, I hated it. And I got up every morning and did it, only to find out, I just needed bursts of that. A really light jog or even some walking would have helped me get to those hour and 50 minutes. We tell people about 2 hours of zone 2 training a week. And so instead of someone going from 0 to 100, we're like, hey, start here, do something more sustainable. But if they have no concept of what zone 2 actually is, what we find, and this was my case, they overshoot it, they burn themselves out, and then they stop doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all about being consistent. And if we all have the volume, the time, and consistency, you can really increase your VO2 max.
And zone 2 isn't just always like running and walking, so that you can use a bike, right, or other options to slowly get in there and work on that zone 2 to widen it and build that base.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point, because I want to include this is something we try and do as much as possible, is be as inclusive and as accommodating as we can to clients that come and see us. We have a variety of people with different circumstances, strengths and limitations in life. And one of the things that we find is, especially when working with some of the limited mobility population, is that we have a stationary bike for them. So we can do a VO2 max on a stationary Peloton. They don't have to get on the treadmill, or some people just prefer to be on a stationary bike rather than run. And then we also have an ability on occasion, when it's a special request, but we can accommodate, is if we have cyclists that want to bring their bike in, we have a trainer for that. And so we can accommodate that by request as well.
That's fantastic. I know that a lot of times the treadmill can be really intimidating to people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely the first time I did it. Yeah, I didn't know what exactly VO2 Max was when I was a client back, 7 years ago when I did it. But one of the great things that I learned about that is it tells me at every heart rate, if I averaged, a heart rate of 140 for an hour, it'll tell me how many fat and carbs in calories I burn. So one, as an endurance athlete, I know how many carbohydrates I need to fuel during an event, or when I'm out there, at mile 26, what I need to intake in. Or if folks are on the weight loss journey, like myself, if I wanted to focus at like a lower heart rate, like 100 or 110, it'll tell me how many calories of fat I burn per hour too. So it really helps you, paired with the RMR and the body comp, to really understand and hone in and tweak some stuff for yourself, depending on what your goals are and where you want to go.
Yeah. And as far as, obviously the longer endurance events like you do, that's really important to know where you got to get these calories in, because, for myself, just running marathons, I mean, yeah, sure, I'm never going to be able to get the calories and the fluids in that I need during that event. But when you're all day long doing something, it's very important. It's there's a wall out there, and you can hit that wall real quick, and it's hard to get back over that wall.
Yeah, it is definitely.
So awesome. Any other questions? What about just any personal stories from clients that have come in that maybe they they had a certain specific goal with their health span in mind? Anything out there that maybe people transform their health span lives specifically that you can bring up?
Off the top of my head, on the spot, I'm sorry, nothing's coming exactly to mind. But the ones that I love to see, I love working with clients that are trying to lose weight. I have, a lifetime of experience of trying to lose weight since the age of 9 was when I first started dieting. And only in the last few years have I gotten to a healthy place with it. And a lot of it has come with BodyMetRx. One of the things that I understand about the people that come to us, it's a very vulnerable experience. It doesn't matter if people are objectively in shape or are, other people's goals. Everybody has some sort of internal conflict with their body. And we're very aware of that. And one of the things that I love to see is when people lose the weight that they've been trying to lose, but they maintain their muscle. And they just because it's not the same. It's not worth losing 20 pounds if 50% of it was your muscle. Like, they're understanding the value of that. And so that's really cool to work with. And, those people, I'm thinking of a few that come to mind. I really love working with those. And then there's the anomalies. We have a couple of clients that are objectively doing the thing that you're told not to do, and it's working for them because I can't explain how it is. And so that's why we're not biased. It really taught us to be as open-minded as possible to what people's ambitions were. They come to us with the wackiest diets and, medical adjuncts and fitness programs. And we're like, okay, we're here to support you. And we're here to test whether or not your body actually likes this. So we kind of have developed this, philosophy of that everything works for somebody, but nothing works for everybody.
Oh, I
And
love that.
it's just, I think at this point, we just have to accept that different things do work for different people, but the only way to know is with the data. And that's what we're here to do. We're just here to feed it back to you so that you know whether or not this is a good fit for you.
Yeah. And that is so, so true. And something that we use in our practice as well. Every body is different. And just because it works for someone else does not mean it's going to work for you, and vice versa. So that is so perfect.
You have to meet people where they're at, because everybody has an interest in one form of activity, or it's like, oh, I can't eat that, or maybe I don't tolerate that, or so it's so interesting to see so much variation. Everybody's a snowflake. So
yeah. And to your question, a guy I know two that pop in my mind. We have one gentleman who's also an Ironman, and he doesn't eat any carbs. He is a straight carnivore gentleman. We are unable to get him to fully max out on a VO2, and he's done it for almost 25 plus minutes. His body is just really good at fueling via fat and having that transition. And then we've also had a gentleman that came in who was very in shape. You look at him, you could tell he's in shape. He works out 5-6 times a week, HIIT classes, spin classes, and a great amount of muscle on him. Then he did his VO2 and it came back fair. And he realized that when we talked about the zone 2, zone 4, because he's out there training in zone 4 all the time. And I'm like, zone 2, and to watch him come back and retest and seeing the changes, because he was understanding of the different heart rate zones and what that can actually do. And he was starting to train in zone 2 and building that VO2 and that aerobic base, and just watching his tests, change and move into the direction that he wanted to go was really nice.
That's great.
Yeah, that's great. But so if somebody wanted to do some testing, whether it be VO2 Max, RMRs, or body comps, how would they reach you guys? How would they contact you all?
Yeah, BodyMetRx KC.com is our website. You can schedule an appointment there. We're located in the 95th and Metcalf area in Overland Park in the Kansas City Metro. And give us a call or shoot us a text message, and we're happy to chat and help anyone out along their journey.
Yeah, it's amazing.
we're available by appointment, and we do have a pre-appointment protocol that we ask you to follow just to get the most accurate results. So you'll hear from us about that. So we don't do any drop-ins because those usually people come with their coffee in hand and having worked out that morning, and it's like we can't get accurate data that way. So do give us a call. We're open Monday through Saturday, and follow us on Instagram at BodyMetRx KC.
We will put all of that in the show notes for people. And thank you so much for this lovely conversation.
Yep.
It was
We
great
really
talking to
appreciate
you.
your time.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.